Perfect.
Okay.
So please, Josh, you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am going to use my time to, I think, use an alternate title for my talk. I don't think 5 minutes is quite enough time to talk about all the physical oceanography of the WAP. So I'm going to focus on a observatory that we have deployed in the coastal area near Palmer Deep off of Anvers Island. And what I hope to get across in this presentation is how important the partnerships are. And so we're doing this work with a great team that you can see on this first slide, but also significant collaboration from two really strong programs, the LTR program out of Palmer Station, as well as the NOAA AMLAR group. And I think one of the big benefits of being able to deploy observatories in places as remote as the WAP is that you have an opportunity to share logistics and share partnerships with a lot of different groups. And so what I want to do is talk about how this observatory is allowing us to see this place in ways that we haven't before. So at the backbone of this observatory is a technology called high-frequency radar. It is a Doppler radar system. We deployed 3 sites at Palmer Deep in the red circles there on the upper right. What it does is it uses radio waves to give us a map of ocean currents within about 60 kilometers of each site where there's overlap. And what that allows us to do is map the surface ocean circulation every half hour. We're using 1 hourly data for a lot of our work at high resolution. So the map on the upper right is not showing the total resolution. We actually get 500 meter. We're plotting about every 3rd vector in that map. And so when you have a spatial time series of circulation, there are a lot of different things that we can do. We can look at long-term means. We can look at variability. We can look at features, persistence of features in different places. We can isolate the tides from the subtidal flow. So there are a lot of opportunities that we get when we have a spatial time series to, again, see how dynamic this system is near the coast. An example of that is we can deploy a bunch of simulated drifters or particles. So each one of these little black dots is a simulated particle that's being deployed in the HF radar currents that are measured by the system. And so you can see coherence in some of those features that those particles show and how those move around the region. We can look at time series of those particles to learn that the surface residence time for this area was actually quite short, about 2 days, which is significant when you think about the doubling time for plankton that are growing in that surface layer during the summer, which could be 7 to 70 days. Also, Matt Oliver and others showed that these features are of interest to penguins. When we track penguins, and if I let that animation go again, you can see little red dots that appear. Those are the tagged penguins, and we can see that they are selecting for some of those features. And so this is an example of what some of these technologies allow us to do, looking at a place in a way that it hasn't been before. And so this past season, we actually strategically deployed an advanced observatory on this initial backbone of HF radar currents to try and look at the entire ecosystem. And this slide is intentionally busy because we were really busy deploying this observatory. This past summer, we had, in addition to the HF radar, we had towed systems that we collaborated with the LTER for the coastal surveys that they're undertaking. We added a towed system. I'll show some data from that. We had 3 gliders, the Slocum gliders, that were equipped with optical, acoustics, data, as well as physical data. And we also used tags on penguins to get some measures of the physical oceanography of the region. And these were deployed in this area below that HF radar current. So we could get a sense of what the oceanography was doing in the context of where we'd be able to measure phytoplankton, zooplankton, and the predator behavior. I'll also add, and this is a huge help that was added, was we incorporated 2 moorings that were provided by the NOAA AMLAR team. And I'll show a little bit of data from that mooring. Really exciting advance of, again, having mobile moored and remote systems all running together in a coordinated way. So I'll have time for a brief, quick story. This is a station keeping glider that showed a lot of variability in the surface. When we look at a survey by the Acrobat, so the Acrobat completed surveys over these two grids. This is temperature, salinity, chlorophyll, and optical backscatter, which gave us an estimate of particles. This was on the 5th of February. 2 days later, this is what the system looked like. The scales are the same. So again, this is the 5th of February. This is the 7th of February. The water column completely changed. It went from a homogeneous upper mixed layer to something that was highly stratified. And when we look at the HF radar, it tells us why. There is this surface feature, this jet that's delivering fresh water from the south to the area. We see that it's not just a change in time, but it's a change in space, because this jet only affected the survey grid to the west and not the survey grid to the right. And so here you can see this is surface salinity. So that fresh water really impacted this grid, not this grid. So we see really dynamic change because this observatory is out all the time. I don't have time to show you at the acoustics, but in the context of that physical oceanography, we're able to map in time and space with gliders as well as moored systems how the scattering community is moving and behaving in this context. We're also able to put GPS-based tags on the penguins to see how their behavior is, again, relative to this oceanographic context provided by the observatory. And then finally, the same model that Carlos mentioned, we're using in this research to try and expand what we're learning about Palmer Deep to other areas throughout the WAP. When you have a model that accurately captures these features, it becomes an incredibly powerful tool. And so I'll end with just that by deploying an integrated observatory, we're able to simultaneously map all components of the ecosystem. By integrating a model, we're also able to generalize those measurements to other spots in the WAP. And I think the last bullet is the most important. And I hope that with this group, we can think about how, as an international community, we can come together to provide shared logistics, shared expertise, to deploy systems like this much more broadly in the WAP. And I will end there.
Okay, thanks, Josh. It's great what you are doing there. It's a lot of fun stuff going on. So we have, I think that at some point we have a raised hand. I don't know if it's still up. I think no. But if I don't know who it was, but if you want to raise a question, please raise your hand. And we have here one question from Diego. He's asking, how is the influence of the freshwater jet in terms of depth?
How?
What was the depth of the intrusion of?
Oh, it was very shallow. So if I shouldn't have stopped sharing there, but it's everything that I showed in that change from one day to the next was in the upper 60 meters of the water column. And so that fresh water stratified the upper 10 to 15 meters. And the salinity went from values of about 34 to 35 down to much less than 32. So it was almost a 3 to 4 PSU change in less than about a day. We measured it on 2 days apart, but it happened very quickly, and it was clearly an advective event and completely changed the upper water column.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. I was there this summer too, around February. I don't remember the exact date. And we took some CTDs, and as we move south and west from the Bismarck Strait, we recorded, I think, lower salinities in the offshore waters. So maybe that was the water that was coming in with this jet or similar waters.
Yeah, I think it's a real advantage of having systems that can continuously operate, because then you capture these events. And now the challenge is on us to understand why those events are happening and what the impact is. But we have the data because the observatory is up and running.
Yeah, thanks. Really amazing to see this work coming through. Thanks, Jess, again. And now we have Rodrigo. I think, yeah, now it's Rodrigo. He's going to talk about the Brazilian activities in the northern Antarctic Peninsula. So please, Rodrigo, if you can share your screen.
I'm trying to find.
It's a green button at the bottom of the, sometimes it disappears. Can you see it at the bottom of the Zoom?
Yeah, I
You
see the
have,
button, but I don't know why it's not sharing the screen.
can you now?
Can you see the screen?
No, you have to select the window that you are, when you click in the green button, it will ask you which window do you want to select. So maybe it's a pop-up window that is appearing and you cannot see it.
Yeah, but it's not working.
Okay. If you can, email me the presentation, I will share it for you.
Okay.
Sorry for the delay. So if anyone in the meantime wants to drop a question to any of the panelists that we have before, just drop in the Q&A, please.
I wonder whether I could just go back to Carlos's talk. Sorry, this is Sharon speaking. Carlos's talk about the waters coming in from the Weddell Sea into the Bransfield Strait. And it strikes me that the questions about nutrients are incredibly prescient. I would guess, and I'm not an expert on the specific area, but I would guess the nutrient concentration would be lower because it would be not from the initial source and it would have transited through areas where some biological uptake has already occurred, so nutrient concentrations would be lower. And I would also have thought that the biogeochemical implications of your work, Carlos, go far beyond nutrients to transports of dissolved inorganic carbon, which hopefully Rodrigo will tell us a little bit about. It strikes me there might also be implications for the changes in primary production that we've seen in that region recently. So are there plans, I guess that ramble is leading to the question, Carlos, are there plans to look at the biogeochemistry in more detail?
Well, okay, so my group is just physical oceanographers. So I would say that I guess a workshop like this, I'm hoping that can foster some collaboration. And so if anybody's interested in doing, we actually have a fair amount of data from LTR. There might be some data from Bransfield Strait that we can also look at. And finally, the next version of the LTR project is going to expand into Bransfield Strait. So, but I don't have anything, any specific plans to look at that now. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, it strikes me as a huge opportunity. So best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Simon, for the really nice question. I was wondering something similar. So now, Rodrigo, I have the presentation up for you. Just let me know when I need to pass to the next slide. Okay, so you go.
Okay, thank you, Juan. So hello, everybody. I'm Rodrigo Kerr from the Federal University of Rio Grande in Brazil. And I'd like to thank Sia to the invitation to present our work. It's a brief mix between results and the GOAL, the Brazilian Highlight Studio Oceanography activity. So the next one, please. So about our group, it's a multi and interdisciplinary group, mainly focused on to study the ocean physics, the biogeochemistry and biology, both from primary producers to top predators. In the right side, you can see our date sets since the establishment of the group in 2002. It's a unique occupation around the North Antarctic Peninsula. The majority of the date sets is available at the Pangaea. You can look for the PI surnames or go out and find the data, or just send an email to us. We are working in collaboration with several institutions like the University of East Anglia, the University of Perpignan via Domitia, the Alfred Wegener Institute, and the University of Lisbon, among others. We published 2 years ago our special issue on Deep Sea Research 2, celebrating the 15 years of the establishment of the group. And now our current projects are namely ecopelagus, mainly focused on the response of the pelagic ecosystems to climate change, and provocar, with the focus on ocean ventilation and the carbon cycles issue around the Western Antarctic Peninsula. The next one, please. So I choose some results from the Gerlach Strait to show here in this meeting, and it's really good because the early presentation. And so about the Gerlach Strait, this region is situated in the southern hemisphere of the Northern Antarctic Peninsula, as shown in the bottom image. The general circulation is a northward surface circulation and subsurface circumpolar deep water intrusions. So the talk that Carlos gave to us is very interesting on that, because it's a question that we have, how the periodicities of these intrusions have mainly in the north part of the strait, and also the strait can receive advection from shelf waters derived from the Bransford Strait and many searches in the northwestern Weddell Sea. If you look for the upper panel in the right, it's a snapshot what we find in 2015 about the biogeochemistry. The region during the summer, the February of this year, worked as a net CO2 release to the atmosphere. This was associated with intrusion from circumpolar deep water in the north. And regarding the biology, it's a dominance of cryptophytes, which occurs depending on the hydrographic conditions in the region. And another interesting result that we find, it's the presence of anthropogenic carbon in the deeper levels of the north part of the Gerlach Strait. This is a specific situation, show a snapshot in the summer of 2015, and it is different from the documented previous studies that show the opposite. You can see the schematic figure in the bottom. That's it's normally the Gerlach work as a net CO2 uptake, mainly dominated by diatoms. The next one, please. Another work that we published in our group regarding the CO2 flux showed that the Gerlach Strait acts as a stronger CO2 sink than nearby open ocean areas during the austral summer, if you consider the time period between 1999 to 2017. And the two conditions is observed in the straits. One that you call as the strong sink scenario, when the straits are assimilating a lot of CO2 from the atmosphere. And the other condition is like the near equilibrium, when the partial pressure of CO2 is near between the atmosphere and the ocean. Even the region is assimilating CO2. It's the magnitude is completely different from the strong sink scenarios that we observed. This strong sink scenario that you can see in the first column of the right figure is mainly associated with the increase of meltwater, mainly in the south region of the Gerlach Strait, and also the increase of chlorophyll A, meaning more primary productive during those periods. Another interesting result is regarding the pattern of variability of the FCO2 in this region that is changed during the summertime. This is only for the summertime. We can see in the left figure at the bottom the CO2 flux and how this oscillates along the region. And if you look for the period after 2013, we can see that the higher frequency of years with a strong CO2 sink is become more frequent than the other decades. The next one, please. So this is the final slide I prepared. 5 minutes is it's so brief. It's only to show what we have done during the summer of this year. It's Marina showed the map that we planned. This is the one that we have executed during this cruise. It is interesting because we repeated the section of the dovetail program in the northern area of the Powell Basin 20 years after the occupation that you can see in the bottom figure. We also have a good cover between observations and the sea glider deployments for study physics, biology, and the carbon study on the stationary edge that Marina talked to us earlier. We also keep the summertime monitor of the Gerlach and Bransfield Strait, as we can see by the hydrographic station done in the figure. We have several studies in progress to better understand the ocean dynamics, the CO2 flux and the drivers, the phytoplankton dynamics. We have uploaded the recent paper of Costa and the co-authors in the Pinbird, if you are interested to understand that we find a large diatom bloom in the Bransfield Strait in 2016. We also plan to study carbon export and the carbonate system variability around the North Antarctic Peninsula environment. This is what I have to show to you. The next one is just to thank you if you have any question.
Thanks, Rodrigo, for a great talk and a lot of interesting science that the Brazilian program is doing. So I don't know if anyone has a question. I don't see. Is there any question? Okay. So if not, thank you, Rodrigo, again. We will keep our, okay, here maybe in the chat now. Okay, not so far, I think. So thanks again, Rodrigo. We will keep our questions and our things for the open forum at the last part. And now I will stop sharing because we have our last presentation, that is Sebastian.